Unit 27.
Conversation.
One. Mrs. Baker is a housewife. 2. She takes care of the house. 3. She gets up at 6:45 every morning. 4. She makes breakfast for her husband and her children. 5. Her husband is Harold Baker. 6. Tom and Carol are her children. 7. Harold Baker works in the city. 8. The children attend school.
9. What does Mrs. Baker do?
She's a housewife.
10. What does she take care of?
She takes care of the house.
11. What time does she get up every morning?
She gets up at 6:45 every morning.
12. What does she do then?
She makes breakfast for her husband and her children.
13. Who's her husband?
Her husband is Harold Baker.
14. Who are her children?
Tom and Carol are her children.
15. Where does her husband work?
He works in the city.
16. What do the children do?
They attend school.
17. What does Mrs. Baker do?
18. She's a housewife.
19. What does she take care of?
20. She takes care of the house.
21. What time does she get up every morning?
22. She gets up at 6:45 every morning.
23. What does she do then?
24. She makes breakfast for her husband and her children.
25. Who's her husband? Harold Baker.
26. Her husband is Harold Baker.
27. Who are her children? Tom and Carol.
28. Tom and Carol are her children.
29. Where does her husband work?
30. He works in the city.
31. What do the children do?
32. They attend school.
33. She takes care of the house. 34. She keeps the house clean. 35. She buys all the groceries. 36. She cooks all the meals.
37. Does she take care of the house or the office?
She takes care of the house.
38. How does she keep the house?
She keeps the house clean.
39. Does she buy some of the groceries?
She buys all the groceries.
40. Does she cook some of the meals?
She cooks all the meals.
41. Does she take care of the house or the office?
42. She takes care of the house.
43. How does she keep the house?
44. She keeps the house clean.
45. Does she buy some of the groceries?
46. She buys all the groceries.
47. Does she cook some of the meals?
48. She cooks all the meals.
49. He gets up at 7 o'clock. 50. He drinks a cup of coffee. 51. He leaves for work at 7:30. 52. He works in the city.
53. What time does he get up?
He gets up at 7 o'clock.
54. What does he do then?
He drinks a cup of coffee.
55. What time does he leave for work?
He leaves for work at 7:30.
56. Where does he work?
He works in the city.
57. What time does he get up?
58. He gets up at 7 o'clock.
59. What does he do then?
60. He drinks a cup of coffee.
61. What time does he leave for work?
62. He leaves for work at 7:30.
63. Where does he work?
64. He works in the city.
65. They leave for school at 8 o'clock. 66. They take a bus to school. 67. They get to school at 9:15. 68. They eat lunch at school.
69. What time do they leave for school?
They leave for school at 8 o'clock.
70. How do they go to school?
They take a bus to school.
71. What time do they get to school?
They get to school at 9:15.
72. Where do they eat lunch?
They eat lunch at school.
73. What time do they leave for school?
74. They leave for school at 8 o'clock.
75. How do they go to school?
76. They take a bus to school.
77. What time do they get to school?
78. They get to school at 9:15.
79. Where do they eat lunch?
80. They eat lunch at school.
81. She eats lunch alone. 82. He eats lunch in a restaurant. 83. They eat lunch in the school cafeteria.
84. Does she eat lunch with someone or alone?
She eats lunch alone.
85. Where does he eat lunch?
He eats lunch in a restaurant.
86. Where do they eat lunch?
They eat lunch in the school cafeteria.
87. Does she eat lunch with someone or alone?
88. She eats lunch alone.
89. Where does he eat lunch?
90. He eats lunch in a restaurant.
91. Where do they eat lunch?
92. They eat lunch in the school cafeteria.
93. The Bakers live in a suburb. It's 20 miles from a big city. 94. Mr. Baker works in the city. He drives to work every day. 95. Mrs. Baker has a car too. It's a station wagon. 96. Sometimes she takes the children to school. 97. She also uses the car to go shopping. She shops in a big shopping centre.
98. Where do the Bakers live?
They live in a suburb.
99. How far is it from a big city?
It's 20 miles from a big city.
100. Where does Mr. Baker work?
He works in the city.
101. How does he go to work every day?
He drives to work every day.
102. What does Mrs. Baker have?
She has a car too.
103. What kind of car is it?
It's a station wagon.
104. What does she use it for?
Sometimes she takes the children to school.
105. What else does she use it for?
She also uses it to go shopping.
106. Where does she shop?
She shops in a shopping centre.
Conversation test.
1. Where do the Bakers live? 2. How far is it from a big city? 3. Where does Mr. Baker work? 4. How does he go to work every day? 5. What does Mrs. Baker have? 6. What kind of car is it? 7. What does she use it for? 8. What else does she use it for? 9. Where does she shop? Dialogue.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thanks. I don't know that woman over there.
Oh, that's Mrs. Semple.
Does she live in this neighbourhood?
She just moved in.
Which house does she live in?
She lives in that little house on New Street.
Where does her husband work?
He works in the city.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thanks. I don't know that woman over there. Mrs. Semple.
Oh, that's Mrs. Semple.
Does she live in this neighbourhood?
She just moved in.
Which house does she live in?
She lives in that little house on New Street.
Where does her husband work?
He works in the city.